Hi, Jeremy the Tall Trainer here. We're going to talk about paleo versus vegan. They're so different and both so popular right now. What's the deal? So you may find this confusing, and so we're going to get into it. And so the basic rules of paleo. So if you don't know about paleo, this is kind of like, what would primitive man eat is basically the premise of that. So they eat grass-produced meats, fish, seafood, fresh fruits and veggies, eggs, nuts and seeds, healthful oils, macadamia nuts, olive oil, walnuts, all those kind of things. They don't eat cereal grains, legumes. They don't eat peanuts because that's technically one of the legumes. Dairy, refined sugar, potatoes, processed foods, salt, and refined vegetable oil. So here's a paleo pyramid. So you got lean meats and fish down there from organic, grass-fed, wild, pasture-raised animals. So the idea is the animal is a primitive animal too, not fed off of grains. And oops, fast forward there. And then we got fruit, veggies above that, and then nuts and berries. So the basic rules of paleo. Basic rules of vegan. So we found a little vegan pyramid. They eat plant-based foods. They don't eat anything from animals. So that, I guess, it's a little bit easier. Short, sweet, to the point. So veggies and fruits make up the bottom of the pyramid here. Whole grains are also fairly low in the base. Fortified dairy substitutes are over here. Beans, seeds, nuts are over on this side, and fats and sweets are on top. And so we've got that look there. So the big disagreements between paleo and vegan: eating meat and eating grains. So vegan says don't eat meat, and paleo says don't eat grains. And so those are the big disagreements. But I find disagreements to be boring. I mean, I find the agreements to be actually much more interesting, and that's where you find more of the truth is in the agreements. So the many agreements, the healthiest paleo and vegan. So these are the healthy versions of paleo and vegan. There, you can do some other things that maybe not be quite as optimal, and nobody does it perfectly anyway. But organic vegetables are a large portion of the diet, so that's pretty good. They're both non-dairy actually, so that's interesting. They avoid processed foods, so when they're done well, they avoid processed foods. They eat whole foods as close to nature as possible. That's a pretty great principle. Nuts and some fruit is good. Who can argue with that? Those all sound lovely, and most of us can improve somewhere on those, without being paleo or vegan. Unhealthy habits that some paleo and vegans use. So paleo, an unhealthy habit is the paleo breads, which is an example of overly processed food. And so it's trying to basically make, something that you're trying to go without, that you can have, and fill in that gap. You don't have to be perfect on this, but you don't watch out for overly processed, so it's not ideal. They eat tons of meat, but not so much veg. So they eat a steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's grass-fed, so it's pretty, not so bad for you. But, it's pushing veggies out. It's taking, the place of too much vegetables. We don't have room for veggies, so that's a problem. Too much fat in the nuts and too much sugar, oftentimes in processed things there. So processed paleo, and we'll end up having too much sugar. Not increasing carbs for increased activity level. And so if you're going to be a paleo athlete, you probably will lean heavier on the fruit side of that. So you need to make sure you're upping that to make sure you have the energy to actually do that heavy level of exercise. Vegans, some unhealthy habits: eating pretended meats. So these are overly processed. So it's supposed to look like chicken, but it's not made out of anything chicken. It's supposed to look like beef, but it's not made out of anything beef. We've played around with that a little bit too much. So we do want to watch out for that. It's been processed quite a bit, so it might be missing some things. We may have played around with it too much. Too many packaged foods. So some people are vegan and they'll buy, vegan brownies, vegan cereals, vegan all this stuff, and so they need to watch out for that. Also, too many grains is a big issue with vegan. So instead of eating more vegetables, they eat a lot of grains. Too much fat, nuts, and sugar. So they overkill in the nuts, again, too many calories in there, sugar on the processed stuff, and sometimes, this happens even more on the vegan side, is too much sugar. Not eating to make up for missing meat, so there's a nutrient gap at B12, so they need to supplement oftentimes with that, or, mostly supplement. 100% perfection is bad, so if choosing a diet for weight loss, don't try to be perfect on either. Usually has a backlash. Exception if your diet choice is based on personal beliefs. And so if you are vegan because you have a strong, opinion that animals should not be eaten, you probably can do that 100% of the time. But a lot of times people choose these diets for weight loss. And so if you get too severe on them, you probably will freak out at some point and bail out, fall off the wagon. So I recommend an 80-20 or a 90-10 principle. So 80% of the time you're doing really good, 20% of the time you have paleo bread, what I think. So this is what's all the stuff's going on, but here's what I condense it down to. This is how I operate. You don't have to think this way as well, but I think this is the middle of the road. This is what it's going to be helpful for a larger range of people. So eat mostly vegetables. This is good for paleo, good for vegan. I believe we can eat some meat as long as they are grass-fed. We don't need to make sure, that's the only thing we eat doesn't have to be the base of our pyramid. I think the vegetables need to be the base of the pyramid. So eat some meat and fruit, and then eat light on grains and nuts. I don't think you have to forbid grains. I think there's some you can have just fine, and there may be some you need to get rid of. But I think you can get a little bit more moderate, and most of us aren't doing enough of those three things. We could do better at those three, and that will get us healthier too. We don't have to be paleo. We don't have to be vegan. We could be either. I'm not against either one of those, but we can be middle of the road also. So this is Jeremy saying, have fun, be safe, and I hope that gave you a good idea on this paleo versus vegan conflict there.